Okay, folks, I'm going to make a relatively short video, I think, about my KEF 104 tools. I did a short video about working on the woofers, which had cone rub and bad donuts and stuff. And I moved on, I repaired those, and I reinstalled those in the speakers and so on. But I was never really satisfied with the sound. So I'm doing something I'm calling 104 to work part 2. Part 1, which is not documented at all, other people have those videos online, is taking the woofers, replacing the donuts and the suspension and reinstalling them. And taking the tweeters, replacing the ferrofluid and reinstalling those. And most people online say, yeah, if the tweeters sound bad, just replace the ferrofluid. But I went through that whole process in these. In fact, I did it twice because I was not satisfied the first time I heard them. And I went through it again, took out the ferrofluid, put new ferrofluid. And I even found that I was doing some reading online, and I found that these cones here looked as though they had lost their doping. They have more of a fabric look than a lot of the pictures I see online. So I even put a thin layer of redoping on this, reglazing. And that didn't help at all. And setting up one speaker with the old tweeter and another speaker with the new Midwest tweeter. The Midwest is just the clear winner that is obviously working properly. These are down on volume and down on upper reach. You could kind of hear, if you switch from the stock one, this stock one, to the Midwest, you can almost hear an octave difference between them. You can hear it go from like that kind of difference, right? And of course, I'm not being very exact, and I don't have any measurements and test results to show you, but you could just hear the volume difference and the upper reach difference. And if you listen to it with these original tweeters with the new ferrofluid, these speakers are not nice. They're not listenable. There was not enough highs, and it makes them get a mid-range lump, especially because there's not so much bass either. So I moved on to the Midwest ones, and I'm perfectly happy with those, right? So that was my part 2 regarding speakers. Part 1 being the ferrofluid replacement. Regarding the woofers now, I still think there's not enough bass in these speakers. And I've done my donuts, I've done my surrounds and all that, and remounted them. But the thing is, what I did read after is that there's certain seals around the woofer and on the inside of these panels and stuff that may not really be sealing properly. And this is an isobaric chamber. And what it is 2 woofers firing into 2 woofers firing into this box at the same time, and they fire towards each other. Okay, so if the seals aren't so good, if you look in here, there is a gray circular line there, and that's a gasket. That's a gasket seal, okay, which is lightly glued to the wood, the chipboard baffle itself, right? And I think that this seal is not really making a proper seal all the way around. I'm sure if I pushed a little screwdriver down in there, if it weren't for the fact that it was glued to this, it would probably just slide out. It's not really. In other words, I think this gasket has been over compressed over the years, and it's not really sealing anymore. Okay, now on this one, there's a corresponding seal. It's colored black instead of gray, and it would be on the inside, the top side of this baffle. So if I remove this, mid-range module, you see the speaker behind that over. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reseal all the chambers, right? I'm going to do over that gray gasket. I have some slightly thicker silicone foam rubber that I'm going to re-glue and replace the gray one. And I'm actually going to take that gray one and put it at the back of this woofer, because the gray one is a little thicker than the black one that's behind there now. So I'm doing a little swapping. When I'm done, I'm also going to add a seal. You can see these are not Very nice looking. I mean, I live in the Caribbean. Lord knows how many years this set of kefs has been in the country. It all looks perfectly fine on the inside joining, but out on these bottom edges, they're a little ragged looking, right? But everything else, it's structurally, they're quite good. So, right, so I'm going to do those seals, and at the end of it, I'm just going to say whether I think that's improved things or not. Will the resealing help the base situation? Remains to be seen, but replacing the tweeters for the Midwest units was a definite 2 thumbs up. Okay, so I'll just update this as I go along structurally. Okay, so now in this lower base box here, you'll see 2 things so far. I've put this white foam gasket, sort of homemade. I just cut it out from this, you know what this is? This is like a thin styrofoam sheet you get with guitars when you get them brand new in the box. It's a closed cell foam that's about 1 millimeter thick, right? And I cut a gasket just with the scissors, and that fits in here. Now below this is the original black thin narrow gasket, maybe made of a similar material, but it's kind of a dark gray. And I think that's just so compressed over the years and it's so thin that adding this wide one would do a fresh job of sealing this bottom panel. Now inside here, I've removed this gray, some type of neoprene strip, which I did reinstall before, and put in this silicone one, which is a bit more rubbery feeling. I don't know how shrunken and degraded this is over time. You can see as soon as I press it, it kind of stays thin, right? But the new one, this one here is taller, right? Now when this is all mounted up, this gray strip is living inside of this flange, okay? And this flange there's a bit of a lip in it. And I feel that this lip is really about the same height as the gray, or even taller. Yeah, you could see. So when the woofer is pressed into the box, this neoprene strip is not really doing any more of a job of sealing the woofer, because the seal is not even the height of that flange, right? So with this new one now, I'll put it on the opposite side. It sits higher than that flange. So when this woofer is pressed in place against the baffle, it's going to form a seal. Let's compare them a little more directly, side by side, without compressing it. You could see a height difference there, right? I'm not throwing this away because I'm actually going to use this for the underside of the upper woofer, okay? But you see what I'm doing here, and that has been installed here, going all the way around, okay? So that's it. I'm pretty much ready to put the woofer straight back in. Now, another thing I did, having the crossover, which is mounted on the bottom board here, okay, and all these wires out. Again, I'm not showing all these details because other videos do. But what I did was hook up a little 9-volt battery with some alligator clips to the terminals on the crossover that deal with the woofers, which are these 4 here. Okay, actually no, sorry, it's these 4, yeah. And you can see, oh boy, sorry, I'm just moving this camera around and getting awkward angles all over the place. But this is on the upper side is the upper woofer, and the lowest pair is the lower woofer. Now, if you put the alligator clips on positive and negative of either pair when it's all hooked up, and you attach them to the 9-volt battery, the woofer will jump up, and the lower woofer cone will jump upward, and the upper woofer cone will actually move downward. Because remember, I said the cones should move facing each other in this isobaric chamber. So basically, woofers are supposed to fire against each other. And when you hook up your little battery with the alligator clips to the terminals, they should be moving that way. If they both move that way or that way, then they're out of phase with each other, okay? And you'll have to figure out which one has the reverse polarity. You'll have to observe the connections on the woofers themselves and the connections here, right? Because I have read online where people absolutely followed the correct color coding and hookup and everything, and they were still getting woofers moving together as opposed to against each other, right? You're supposed to move against each other. So I did check that as the first thing when I disassembled it, because if it were hooked up wrong, that would explain my low bass and I wouldn't have to do much else, okay? So we did confirm correct hookup wiring first. Okay, so I've taken the upper woofer out, laid it on his face, and I've taken the previous gray strip of neoprene from the bottom box, and I've used a little contact cement and glued it along the rim here. Now, this upper woofer already has a neoprene strip, but for those who've dug around in this would see that these have something of a little metal collar, little spacer here that seems, you can see another one down there, and one is embedded in the little rubber grommet here, and it seems to want to space the, let's see if we can pull it off. It wants to space the back of this frame. It goes through the grommet and it wants to hold the speaker frame that distance, about 1/8 of an inch, 3 millimeters, right, off of the MDF. But again, I think this is so compressed that doesn't even look like it's 2 millimeters tall, this old neoprene. I think this is all compressed or shrunken, right? So I just adding this without removing this. I mean, I think I could remove this and I'd be okay. But I'm just gonna put them together and let them squish together and form a better seal than has been there, right? So that's it. Without even unwiring this upper side, I get to bolt this back in place. And I'm actually done, except for reattaching the bottom and the wires and so on. Okay, so this is now back in, and this is now back in now. You'll notice there's a big silvery looking one there. When I had first taken this apart, that bolt was all seized up. I couldn't get the nut off. So as a result, that one is replaced. Right, so I read the original KEF assembly manual, and they said in those that these bolts, these nuts should only really be kind of finger tight, right? The reason being that you don't want to compress those little rubber grommets too much and ruin them, right? So I just kind of put the socket on them and turn them just to about finger tight with the socket. And that's all that I'm willing to do. And that's the top and bottom ones, right? Also, to a note is on like that is on the tweeter assembly. When you put this tweeter fixing bolt on, it said it's only really supposed to be sort of finger tight because it's held in place on the front. There's a foam gasket on the front, so that compresses and holds it in place. Right, so I've got to hook up all the crossover wires and then it's back together. Right, so we're all back in place here. I restuffed the insulation, did the wires for the crossover, and then everything is buttoned up. Okay, so I have to move on to the next one. Let me tell you, it takes long to work on these. You just have to fiddle around with each of the fittings, you know, moving stuff back and forth, not making any mistakes, double checking your wiring. They are a long, the work sessions always take longer than you would think. Okay, I'm almost through the second unit now. And I've, from the same type of material, I also backed up the seal on this one. Now, some of these earlier models have a panel that screws in here behind the mid-range unit. But this one, it's open, but there's the same black gasket behind it. So I've just doubled that up, right? So I've reinstalled everything. There's my crossover down on the floor. I'm gonna put this mid-range unit back in. and then the floor piece, and I'm done. This is the previous one up and running. So I'm already listening to it, and I have to say I'm not really noticing any difference in the bass, right? So it's just casual listening. So far, that double sealing and resealing may not be a make or break issue with improving bass. Okay, I'll say that so far, but at least it's in my conscience to that I didn't really reseal the woofers properly when I repaired them. So I am just satisfying my conscience with doing this over with fresh, less compressed, shrunken seals. Okay, well, I'm doing a little video now to finish up a few little projects. The restoration refurbishment of the KEF 104.2s. And here they are sitting next to some other favorites. Here's Acoustic Energy AE1s, the original ones from, I guess, the 90s or late 80s, I'm not sure. And everyone's favorite Pioneer HPM 100s, right? So I just refurbished these KEFs and resealing of the bass woofer compartments, right? Now, listening to it, I've been listening to them with these various amps I have here. I have my Macintosh 2105, which you could look through my older videos. You'll find a whole refurbished video on this, and a couple refurbished videos of this, which is the 2505, right? You can see the difference in the lighting. This is the old school lighting, and this is the modern lighting. And I also run, in another set of videos, you will find a refurbishment video of this pair of Dynakits Mark IIIs, which, full disclosure, these are the best sounding amps. These are much clearer, noticeably clearer than the Macintosh amps. But of course, the Macintosh kind of come across as more powerful amps, right? And so I kind of use the speakers back and forth between the Macintosh and the Dynacos, but the Dynacos are the real clear, critical listening, right? So to answer the final little KEF question, did resealing the woofer chambers make a difference? No, not really. I think it just helped my conscience to finish that up, but they sound about the same. They still remain a bass shy speaker, right? At least in my setup here and in my ability to position the speaker. The really basic speakers here are those Pioneers. They're actually, I really shouldn't have them on the floor because they're too boomy. They should be about 15 inches off the ground. These Acoustic Energies have no bass at all, right? You have to EQ, crank the bass on the EQ and really put the volume up to get any kind of wide bandwidth listening out of these. Anyway, hope you like this stuff and that the KEF anatomy study was enjoyable. Okay? Thank you.